You're the space in which the movie is appearing. You're the screen, not the images on the screen. Now, let me tell you what happens when you begin to disidentify from thinking, when you begin to recognize that you are not the voice in your head. Something quite remarkable occurs. The thinking begins to slow down. It loses its compulsive quality. It's like you've discovered the off switch, or at least the volume control. This doesn't mean thinking stops entirely. Practical thinking still arises when needed, but the endless, useless, repetitive internal chatter begins to subside. And in its absence, you discover something extraordinary. There's a silence underneath all the mental noise, a vast, spacious awareness in which thoughts come and go like clouds passing through the sky. And in this silence, this spaciousness, you're more present to life as it actually is, rather than being lost in thoughts about life. You're here now, rather than being lost in memories of the past or fantasies about the future. You're experiencing directly, rather than through the filter of constant mental commentary. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're looking at a beautiful sunset. If the mind is chattering, it's saying things like, "Oh, what a beautiful sunset, I should take a photograph. This reminds me of that sunset I saw 5 years ago. I wonder if tomorrow's sunset will be as nice. I wish Sarah were here to see this. I should tell her about it. What time is it? How long should I watch this?" And on and on. And in all this thinking, you're not actually seeing the sunset. You're thinking about the sunset, but you're not present to the direct experience of it. But if the mind is quiet, you're simply seeing colors, light, movement, the vast sky, the extraordinary display of nature, no words about it, no evaluation of it, no comparison to other sunsets. Just this, pure seeing, pure being here with what is. And this direct experience is so much richer, so much more alive than any thought about experience could ever be. This is what the mystics mean when they talk about living in the present moment. They don't mean thinking about the present moment, that's just more thinking. They mean being so present that the thinking subsides, and you're in direct contact with reality as it unfolds, moment by moment, without the mediating filter of thought. Now, you might be wondering, how do you achieve this? How do you quiet the mind? How do you stop the internal dialogue? And here's where we come to a very subtle point. You can't stop it by trying to stop it, because who would be trying? The mind would be trying to stop the mind. The thinker would be trying to stop thinking. And this just creates more thought, more effort, more internal dialogue. It's like the old instruction, don't think of a pink elephant. The moment you try not to think of something, you're thinking about it. In the same way, if you try to stop thinking, you're engaging in a kind of thinking. You're creating thoughts about stopping thoughts, and this doesn't work. It just creates more mental noise, not less. So what's the alternative? The alternative is not to try to stop thinking, but to observe, to become aware of thinking, to notice the internal dialogue without getting caught up in it, without believing it, without identifying with it, to watch thoughts the way you might watch clouds passing through the sky, noticing them, but not becoming them, not following them, not getting lost in them. This is what meditation practices are fundamentally about. Not stopping thought, that's a common misunderstanding, but becoming aware of thought, creating some space between awareness and thinking, recognizing that you are not your thoughts, you are the awareness in which thoughts appear. And when you practice this, when you consistently observe thinking without identifying with it, something very interesting happens. The thinking gradually loses its compulsive quality. It's like you've stopped feeding it with your attention and belief. And when thoughts aren't believed, when they're not taken as absolute truth, when they're not identified with, they naturally begin to subside. Think of thoughts as being like waves on the ocean. If you believe you are the waves, if you identify with every surge and crash, life is turbulent, unstable, frightening. But if you recognize that you are the ocean itself, that the waves are just temporary movements on the surface, while the depths remain calm, then the waves can come and go without disturbing your fundamental peace. Now, I want to address something important. The mind won't like this. The thinking mind will resist this shift in identification because it threatens its very existence. It will come up with all sorts of arguments for why constant thinking is necessary, why you need to worry, why you need to analyze, why you need to plan, why you can't just be present without all this mental activity. It will tell you that if you stop thinking so much, you'll become irresponsible, you will fail to achieve your goals, you'll be taken advantage of, you will miss important opportunities. It will create fear about what will happen if you don't keep up the constant mental vigilance. And all of this is just the mind trying to maintain its control, trying to keep you identified with it, trying to prevent you from discovering that you are not it. But if you can see through these stories, if you can recognize them as just more thinking, just more of the same compulsive mental chatter, then you can let them pass without being controlled by them. You can acknowledge the thought, there's a worried thought about stopping thinking, and let it go, coming back to simple awareness, simple presence. And gradually, the identification weakens. You begin to experience yourself more and more as the awareness in which thoughts appear, rather than as the thoughts themselves. And this shift, though it might seem small, is actually revolutionary. It's the difference between being trapped in a dream and knowing you're dreaming. The dream might still be happening, but you're no longer fooled by it. You're no longer identified with it. Let me tell you what life becomes like when this shift occurs, even partially. There's a sense of spaciousness, of freedom. Things that used to trigger compulsive thinking, worries, anxieties, regrets, still arise, but they don't hook you the same way. They're like clouds passing through a vast sky. They come and they go, but the sky remains unchanged. There's a natural peace that's always present underneath the mental noise. Not a peace you have to achieve or maintain, but a peace that's your fundamental nature, that's always been there but was obscured by all the thinking. It's like discovering that beneath the choppy surface of the ocean, there's always been a calm depth. There's also a freshness to experience, because you're not constantly filtering everything through thought, through memory, through comparison and judgment. You meet each moment as if for the first time. A flower is just a flower, not a flower like that other flower, or a flower that reminds me of, or a flower I should photograph. Just this flower here, now, pure and immediate. And paradoxically, when you're less identified with thinking, you actually think more clearly when thinking is needed, because the thinking isn't compulsive and confused and contradictory. It's focused, purposeful, efficient. You use thought as a tool rather than being used by thought as if you were its tool. So why won't your mind stop talking to itself? Because you keep believing it's you. You keep identifying with it. You keep feeding it with your attention and belief. The moment you begin to observe it rather than be it, the moment you recognize yourself as the awareness in which thinking happens rather than as the thoughts themselves, in that moment the compulsive quality of thinking begins to dissolve. The internal dialogue might not disappear completely. Thoughts will still arise, that's the nature of mind. But they'll arise in space, in silence, in awareness, and they'll subside again, returning to the source from which they came. And you'll discover that you are not the coming and going, you are the space in which the coming and going happens. You are not the waves, you are the ocean. You are not the voice, you are the silence in which the voice appears. And in that recognition, there's a peace that the thinking mind has been seeking all along but could never find through thinking. Because the peace isn't in thought, it's in the absence of identification with thought. It's in the recognition of what you really are, beneath all the mental noise. It's in the silence that's always been here, waiting patiently to be noticed. So don't try to stop the voice in your head. Just notice it, observe it, recognize that it's happening, but that you are not it. You are the awareness that knows the voice is speaking. And in that knowing, in that awareness, the voice naturally begins to quiet. Not because you've suppressed it, but because you've stopped believing in it, stopped identifying with it, stopped feeding it with your senses. And that, ultimately, is why your mind won't stop talking to itself, because you keep thinking you are the voice. The moment you realize you're not, the whole thing shifts. The talking might continue for a while out of habit, but it's no longer your talking. It's just talking, happening in the space of awareness that you are. and that makes all the difference.